Welcome back, everybody. I wasn't sure we were going to meet this evening, so I'm really glad we can get together. We are,
Is this correct?
um, let's see. What page are you on? I can't see what page you're on.
Oh,
I don't think it's chapter 10.
oh, are we on 9?
Hold
Okay.
on, wait a second. Wait. I was looking at some editing changes, so I'm the one who's really off. Are we up to chapter 10? Is that right? I don't think so. Did you read, was I not here? Did you read last
No,
time? I
no,
wasn't
but
here.
we read some of 9 then,
Some of 9? Okay.
because
Oh,
we finished the Flint one the time before, and then we
yeah.
had that discussion about who was speaking.
So we read chapter 6, we read chapter 7.
Wait, maybe I'm way off.
I mean, we read all about the ordination and everything.
No.
I didn't think so.
Okay, so let me
You
go
read
to.
about 9/11.
We read about 9/11, and I think that's where we ended. Yeah. Page 94 and 95. I
Okay,
think that's where we ended last time.
okay, I didn't write it down. So let me get to.
So we would be starting on 90.
Oh, I see. There's two Flints. That's where I was confused.
Yeah.
So,
96, page 96.
but what chapter?
It's page 96.
Well,
It's there
this
at
is,
the bottom of the page.
oh, okay.
These numbers are at the bottom of the page. It's before this one.
I wanted to be prepared and have it in, so I could get it in there, but this is all right. Oh, 96.
No, 96, yeah.
Okay.
That's not it. I don't know what you're showing.
Oh, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was,
Do you want me to show it? I've got it
no,
up. I've got it.
if you want to, do you have it in PDF rather than,
Well, I have it on Google.
oh, okay. Why don't you show it? It will look better.
Okay. All right. Here. All right. I can't tell what that looks like on your screen, but
It's fine.
it's fine. I'll make it a little bigger. There you go. Okay. You
Yes.
can do the spread. Okay. All right. So it's going to be Ann and Ed and Kim and Melen and then me.
We forgot Donna.
Oh, Donna. Oh, yeah. You know, she's not showing up because it's only showing a few of the people.
But Donna is after Ann.
Donna's after Ann, yeah. There we go. Okay, now I see everybody. All right.
Donna would be after Ed, not Ann.
After Ann.
After Ann, okay. I had it backwards. Wrong alphabet.
All right.
Okay. Zen rhetoric. Much later, in 2007, I found myself directing the largest writing center in the country with 85 consultants and full-time staff. I was supervising graduate PhD students writing their dissertations and teaching graduate seminars and undergraduate classes, demanding work. All of my courses were hands-on, interactive classes in computer-enriched classrooms. My students and I were excited, creative, and thriving. My courses began to center on students researching topics and then writing book chapters, planning, editing, and designing books we published at the end of the semester. 2 of these books are based on students studying and practicing Zen in my Zen rhetoric classes, True Beginner's Mind and The Whisper Within, Zen and Self.
I created the Zen rhetoric course when I realized that throughout our education, from a very early stage right through college and even graduate school dissertations, all of our instruction in writing has been divided into writing that was creative, poetry and fiction, or argument and persuasion, which formed the vast majority of our instruction. This is how we foster a culture that is at once loquacious and grasping. We are hostile to and intolerant of viewpoints different from our own. And we are hapless pawns of our own impulses and desires, which are fueled and skillfully manipulated by persuasive marketing and social media. The world was hardening into us and them.
Okay. The Zen rhetoric course was designed to introduce college students to other ways of making meanings that transform people's minds and lives and shape the way people can relate to each other without argument or persuasion. Zen is not the only kind of rhetoric to do so. Psychotherapy, myth, and many other cultures use language and make shared knowledge by other means. In these ways, people come to agreements and make decisions together, change minds and hearts too. The linear logic of argument and persuasion is not the only or even the best means to foster individual and societal evolution. How can we ever create peace and harmony among cultures and traditions so unable to understand each other because their ways of using language were so utterly different?
So I guess Zen rhetoric is the phrase you're using to describe writing that is neither creative nor argumentative.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, okay. How would you describe the writing? I'm not how would you describe it? Do you have a phrase for it or?
For Zen rhetoric? I'm about to explain that.
Okay. Zen rhetoric was what I knew best, and so I taught the eloquence of silence, the scaffolding of Zen forms such as bows and ceremony, the beauty of a gesture, the serenity of Zen calligraphy, the meaning-seeking practice of inquiry. But my students loved best the spontaneity and surprising use of language in encounter found in ancient Zen koans. There is something magical and liberating in a koan, even for college students with no previous knowledge of Zen, that has resonated and delighted us from 1,000 years ago right down to the present day.
In their chapters, written and revised over the course of the semester, students started by recounting their often hilarious preconceptions of Zen coming into the class, as well as charming self-awareness. We read this the last session.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we then? I've lost track then.
We ended.
Oh, okay. I think we completed. Meanwhile, I was somehow becoming a priest, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That might be where we ended, I think. Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's at the start of Austin Zen Center. Okay. Do you want to read this opening part?
Okay. Hutchinson Center. Hearing the words, you should understand the source. Don't make up standards on your own. If you don't understand the path as it meets your eyes, how can you know the way as you walk? Progress is not a matter of far or near, but if you are confused, mountains and rivers block the way. Sekito Kisen, merging of difference and unity. Austinson Center, should I go or someone else?
I'll go.
Okay.
Austin Zen Center had moved from West Avenue into a large, stately house in a leafy neighborhood just a few blocks from the university. I could even walk there on a lunch hour. An enormous live oak tree shades the front yard and the deep, inviting front porch. A front floor provides shelves for shoes, a place to be welcomed into the Zendo beyond with its huge windows that looked out onto the garden and trees. There's a little awkward kitchen with a dining room to the side and a very tiny bathroom on the first floor. Upstairs, there were several rooms for residents, a library meeting room, a sewing room, and 2 bathrooms. It had served as a Quaker meeting house for many years. In the 60s, I was told, it had been part of an underground railroad for refugees from Central America. So it had a rich history. The Quakers were so glad the house would be used as a home for Zen practice, another contemplative tradition. And if you go there today, you can still see a photo of the Quakers together with Flint's early Zen Sangha standing on the expansive front steps.
It was the perfect place to serve as a Zen center, and it had been a lavish gift from a generous donor. The board had by then brought a teacher from the San Francisco Zen Center, a teacher with Dharma transmission, well trained in all the proper forms and ceremonies. Flint had recently been ordained, and he soon established his psychotherapy practice in the small house across the street that had also been a donor's gift. All of the stars had aligned by the time I arrived. Finally, I was home. Sitting in the Zendo, these unspoken words came to me. Be still and let the light find you.
So read the opposite page, Donna.
Here in America, we cannot define Zen Buddhists in the same way we do in Japan. American students are not priests, and yet not completely laymen. I understand it this way, that you are not priests is an easy matter, but that you are not exactly laymen is more difficult. I think you are special people and want some special practice that is not exactly a priest's practice and not exactly a layman's practice. You are on your way to discovering some appropriate way of life. Shanu Suzuki Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind.
Flint and I connect. Flint was elegant in full priest robes leading service. The Sangha was filled with bright, smart, accomplished people, a city attorney, a UT professor, the head of a leading design firm in Austin, what I think of as city lights. They were drawn to AZC by Flint's warm, charismatic presence. Some had been therapy clients over the years, some were friends, some had heard him give a talk or teach somewhere. Those days, even in the shadow of 9/11, were filled with joy for me. Suddenly, my life had deep purpose and meaning. I could help, I could train, I could foster this new Zen Sangha, and I could help support Flint. I had been attending regularly for a month or so when Colin, an experienced Sangha member, said, "You've been hanging around for a while. Why not learn how to ring a bell?" I was shocked. I thought such a role was something that would require years of practice and then years of training and apprenticeship. I should have known better. This wasn't a Japanese monastery. At AZC, everybody doing those formal roles was as an ordinary citizen, just like me, not a monk in training. I began to learn the roles, the Fukudo, who sounds the wooden han to summon people for zazen, the doan, who serves as the timekeeper and who plays the bells during service and ceremonies, the kokyo, who announces and leads the chants, the jisha, who serves as attendant to the doshi, the person who leads service or ceremonies. I delighted in learning these roles. Once I got over my awkwardness and shame at my mistakes. What mistakes?
The first time I was a doan ringing bells, Flint was the doshi for service. I was terribly nervous. During the 9 bouts at the start, I struck the bells so fast and furiously that Flint was gamely bobbing up and down like someone under fire, ducking for cover. And finally, Cullen put up his hand to stop me, which is basically like shouting in a zendo. Somehow I finished the service, but as soon as I got into my car, I began weeping. I was a wreck. I was still weepy when I met with the teacher for Doka-san the next day and told her the whole story. She was perplexed. Are you embarrassed that you made a mistake in front of everybody? No, there were only three other people there, I said. And besides, I'm a teacher. My whole career is having to make mistakes in front of everybody. Well, is it because you were ashamed to make a mistake with Flint? No, I wept. It's because I broke something beautiful. I had a great question the other day from someone who came from for orientation. She's actually a math professor at UT, and she said, "What is it that I might do that would be really, really embarrassing?" And I said, "Whatever you would do would be so helpful because it would be something for us to practice with." And she didn't buy that at all. So then I said, "Don't kick the zabaton." I knew she could not understand. She disliked service. I found it translucent, profound, luminous. When Flint was doshi, you could feel the elegance and warm heart of it, the deep mystery there.
I have been devastated by 9/11 and the continuing horrific cycle of vengeance and violence it unleashed. From the Bush administration starting an immoral war with Iraq, a country not involved in the attack, to enraged men dragging. Can you make it a little bit bigger, please? Or maybe I can do it.
You might be able to do it on your,
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry. Yes. To enrage men dragging sick clerks from gas stations and beating them to death. No Muslim was safe. Mosques were burdened, children threatened. Everywhere it seemed ignorance and hatred were flooding the country and the world. There was no nation period of mourning that the lives lost, no reflecting in our nation's role in provoking this tragedy, just senseless violence.
I sat in the Zendo at AZC day after day with one thought. What can end this escalating spiral of hatred and violence? 10 million people had marched to protest the war in Iraq, but this had had no effect on the Bush administration. Policy experts warned against the war. Even George Bush's own father, the former president, had opposed it, all to no avail. Things just kept getting worse, more extreme, more violent, more unhinged. Where would it end? The bell had rung and meditation was over. One evening, we stood up for service and opened our chant books. Near me, I saw Flint hand his chant book, already open to the right page, to a new person. There was such grace and ease and connection in it that I was struck with a powerful realization out of my anguished question. What can possibly reverse the spiral of ignorance, hatred, and violence? The answer lies in tiny acts of kindness. It seems so obvious, doesn't it? From that moment, he became my teacher. When I asked him formally in practice discussion if he would be my teacher, he replied, "We will teach each other." And so it has been.
Trousseau, head student. In 2003, I was the head student, Trousseau, for the summer practice period at AZC. It was a residential practice period held about 45 minutes from Austin at Tenzo, a beautiful retreat center on the Pedernales River. There was a large stone main house with a huge Buddha Hall barn that had been built for Flint's ordination. We students slept in the balcony of the Buddha Hall. Everything about that time was expansive. The vast blue Texas sky with its resplendent sunsets, the horizonless vistas overlooking the Pedernales River, the sense of boundless time and space, the timeless quality of longhorns grazing in a meadow studded with live oak trees. We worked at simple tasks during the day, making meals, cleaning the house and the Buddha barn, sweeping walks, study. And of course, we had hours of meditation. I was using the long gravel driveway as a track for my early morning run. I had left behind all my academic responsibilities and I felt truly free there with our little cohort of monks practicing together. At night, I would steal out when everyone was asleep and skinny dip in the pool that overlooked the river. Flint would come out from Austin from time to time as his schedule allowed, but we were mostly under the supervision of the AZC teacher. When you are a Trousseau, you give 3 Dharma talks, clean all of the bathrooms, and take out the compost in the mornings, and have tea one-on-one with Sangha members. In my task, I was accompanied by my Benji, attendant, Brendan.
So how long were you there?
A month. Yeah, it was a month.
Donna, I think you're next.
I gave a series of talks on the koan that is case 12, to Zhang planting the fields from the Book of Serenity.
So you can read that this little koan if you want to. It's Dijon and Xiu Shan.
Case 12, Dijon planting the fields. The introduction. Scholars plow with the pen. Craters plow with the tongue. We patch-robed mendicants lazily watch a white ox on open ground, not paying attention to the rootless, auspicious grass. How to pass the days. The case. Dezong asked
Xiu Shan.
Zhejiang, "Where do you come from?" Zhejiang said, "From the south." Dezong said, "How is Buddhism in the south these days?" Zhejiang, "There's extensive discussion." Dezong said, How can that compare to me here planting the fields and making rice to eat?" Zhejiang said, "What can you do about the world?" Dezong said, "What do you call the world?" From the Book of Serenity 100, Zen Dialogues, translated by Thomas Cleary.
I found that first question, where do you come from, very provocative. and it was the basis for the first talk. It has a casual ordinariness that could easily be misread, as Shui Shan seems to have done. But a Zen master asking a question is never casual, never ordinary. It is an existential probe. He follows up with another seemingly casual question: how is Buddhism in the South these days? But Shui San has begun to realize he's not in an ordinary conversation and answers, somewhat warily, I sense, there's extensive discussion. Perhaps he's come here to Dijong's place because he is dissatisfied with that state of affairs. So Dijong goes further. How can that compare with me here planting the fields and making rice to eat? Shui Shan responds with the question we eventually all face in our meditation practice and in our lives. What can you do about the world? What do you think about Dijong's response? What do you call the world?
The Shuso ceremony at the end of the practice period was like a dream. In that very formal ceremony, the head student is asked questions by people attending, and most people respond with vigor, pounding a tall wooden staff on the floor with each answer. There was a large assembly, including one of our AZC priests, Shozan, who was blind and sat in front with his guide dog. Flint could not be there because of his work, but he sent a note of congratulations and his question, something like this, which comes from an old koan. You've had many responsibilities as the Shusho. Can you show us the one who is not busy? At that exact moment, Sojan's dog lying beside his chair rolled over and sighed. I just gestured toward him. It was such a perfect expression of it.
Ultimately, we could introduce the idea of a practice period and head student at Appamada, even though it is not part of Jogo's simplified model of Zen. It is a wonderful experience of taking time to deepen our practice intentionally for about 90 days, to experiment with some of Appamada's varied offerings, and to provide training and experience for the head student. At Appamada, the head student teaches a course, Introduction to Zen, based on their own design, gives 3 Dharma talks on the practice period theme, and meets with Sangha members one-on-one for tea.
What is a priest? I was energized and joyful at AZC, attending twice daily and as many sessions as I could manage. I saw Flint and the resident teacher for Dokusan and wholeheartedly embraced every aspect of my new Zen life. I was elated to be immersed in it, and then I had a realization. I went to the teacher in Dokusan and said wonderingly, I think I'm on the priest path. This was clear, yet confusing to me because I had no idea what that meant. But I did know that a major shift had happened and that I wanted to put serving Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha at the center of my life. I had studied the precepts and Sona Rakasu, the miniature version of Buddha's robe, which was itself perplexing. I had said to Joko, some practice seems to involve a lot of sewing. I had done the Jukai ceremony, but I was still mystified by the words that had come out of my mouth in that moment. I think I'm on the priest path. And she responded naturally, start sewing. Sewing the kesa, the enormous priest robe with its tiny stitches, would take nearly 2 years.
When the revered Zen teacher and scholar Shohaku Okumura came to AZC to lead a study session on Dogen's Mountains and Rivers Sutra, he kindly offered Dokusan. I didn't hesitate, although I supposed that he would find me ridiculous, a silly American woman about to be ordained without any qualifications. Still, I was consumed with my question. What is a priest? I was so rattled I don't even recall his answer, which was kindly. I suppose in his head, he was thinking a priest is a Japanese man who has studied Zen in school and at university, trained in a monastery, had kensho, and is verified by a proper abbot. Obviously, not you, in other words. I left, chastened by my own projections, confused as ever. What is a priest? Certainly not me, not yet. I made a mind map of what I thought a Zen priest should know and be able to do. So many things I had not yet learned. I showed it to Flint and the teacher, and she laughed. If those were the requirements, no one would ever be ordained.
Despite my insistence that I was not yet prepared for the role, she and Flint continued their arrangements for the ceremony. I wanted to wait for Flint to have Dharma transmissions so that he could ordain me, hopefully when I was better prepared. Still, he urged me to go ahead. That way we can work together as peers, he said. I was told the situation was not uncommon and that sometimes the ordination ceremony, tokodu, was performed by someone who was not the person's main teacher. First would sit next to the teacher in the ceremony in a symbolic role.
But I was in anguish about my unworthiness. Flint offered to see me every morning in the weeks leading up to the ceremony for a practice discussion. What kind of place would ordain me? I wept. I don't know anything. Every day he patiently put me back together. I was on leave from the university for a year, a gift from my department. So I was living in residence at AZC, and I was the house manager. I felt so at sea that it was helpful to have ordinary tasks, scrubbing toilets, chopping carrots for sashins, fixing a shower door. Still, I despaired about my capacity to be a priest. Finally, I said to Flint, I'm trying to get mad at you. How's it going? He asked kindly. Not very well, I shot back, and you're not helping. His compassion, clarity, and acceptance have always made it impossible to be angry with him. But I wanted to because the whole machinery of the Tokudo ceremony kept ratcheting forward. What else could I do? I had to prepare myself. I had spent 2 years sewing the kesa, a practice of true devotion. I resigned myself and made a mind map of the ceremony to begin memorizing my lines. Tokudo is a very formal ceremony with many moving parts.
That's Shohaku Okamura. He was so kind.
Tokudo. I was supposed to have the Kesa priest robe finished a month before the ceremony by my timetable. Instead, we were ironing it Thursday night just before. Once it was finished, I was very happy about it, with all its mistakes and difficulties. It is really mine. Oh, something's wrong here.
What?
It is really mine. It's fine. Hard earned over nearly 2 years of sewing, practicing, and working with teachers. I finally felt that I was stepping into the most appropriate role for me. We had the rehearsal the night before the ceremony, and Ben and his girlfriend, exhausted from getting up at 4 a.m. and traveling from Chicago, stayed to watch it. It was so sweet.
Linton, the teacher, had asked me not to prepare my way-seeking mind talk the evening before the ceremony, but just to talk directly without notes. Instead of focusing on the events or circumstances or decisions that led me to this vow, I realized I wanted to talk about all of them, the people who were gathered, and how much I have learned from each of them and been nourished by them. Ben, my sister Nora, friends Amy and Michael, faculty college colleagues Linda, John and Anna, and also many of the Sangha, that the Zendo was overflowing. I was so close to tears, but I could not speak about Flint and our connection. It was too personal, too deep, and I was too worried that I might break down altogether if I started.
Saturday morning then, I began sitting zazen, and some folks joined me. When it was time, Flint and John shaved my head, all except the little patch in the back that is left for the ceremony. We did this in Flint's office, and the ritual was intimate and funny too, but they were very intent and careful. It was so moving.
Greg had prepared one of his signature baths with flowers in the water, fruit and chocolates, candles burning in each corner of the tub, and flowers on a little tray next to the bath. It was so very hot and delicious. No one had been assigned to get me, so I didn't know what time it was or where I was supposed to be. I was in an altered state of mind. Finally, Greg knocked on the door to tell me it was time for lunch, and I put on, for the first time, my new jubon and kimono. I felt completely calm and still. They took me to the dining room where John had prepared a lunch of brown rice, broccoli, and fruit. I could barely eat.
Did you lose Donna?
I began, is that where we are?
Yeah.
I began to sit zazen in the zendo, and gradually people came and sat with me until it was time to go upstairs for tea with the teacher and Flint. We had a formal tea with the matcha and little sweets on a pretty tray and talked for a bit. Then it was time for the ceremony. First, Anita led me to each altar, starting with Flint's office, where I offered incense and made 3 full bows. Then the garden altar, work altar, kitchen altar, sewing room altar, the teacher's office, 3 full bowls, bows, and the Kisando founder's altar. Meanwhile, the teacher had entered the zendo with Flint in the formal entering procession.
Finally, I came downstairs and was stunned to find the Zendo and the foyer overflowing with people. There were over 80 people already, and still more people kept coming. By then, I was completely borne along by the roll and the majesty of the ceremony. Every word was meaningful. Every movement seemed completely natural and right. I had spent so much time memorizing the parts that I needed to say alone, and yet when it was time to say them, I inhabited them completely, and they just rolled out in such an easy, heartfelt way. Just like the Shuso ceremony, the language seems formulaic and formal, but turns out to be intimate and personal. Should I keep going?
No. It's,
Okay.
The teacher was in her silk
Dupioni,
Dupiani,
Koromo.
Koromo, and Kesa, and Flint was, of course, impeccable in his priest robes as her Jisha. The presentation of my new name, Jiki Senko An, was so moving because the teacher decided to include part of Flint's name in my name, the Ko, which means boundless. The whole name means straight or direct river, boundless ease or bliss. Auspicious signs. When I put on the Komoro,
Coromo.
say it again, please.
Coromo.
Koromo, there was a terrific clap of thunder. Although the weather was calm and clear, there was another clap of thunder at the exact moment I put on the kesa. There was no other thunder all afternoon. In the middle of the ceremony, the temple cat, Miao Shin, walked into the zendo and sat in the middle of the assembly.
At
Yes,
the
this
end,
is, go on.
Yeah, it's Milan.
At the end of the ceremony, the teacher invites congratulations, starting with Flynn's and ending with herself. It was incredibly moving. Then Ben spoke, calling me Mom Jiki, which was so sweet. I was weeping at these reflections about what I have meant in his life. Then Nora spoke, people from the Sangha. As one person after another said moving and personal things about their experience of me, I was overwhelmed by the wave of love and appreciation directed at me. This went on for another 45 minutes after the ceremony. The teacher spoke last, and I can't even remember what she said. But by then I was practically unconscious. I don't think I have ever had such an experience. So damaging to my capacity for self-rage and self-loathing.
Then we went over to the reception, where there were literally dozens of delicious dishes people had brought. Lots of pictures were taken, and then I was taken to Flint's office, where they had assembled all of the priests, Senshin, Flint, John, Barbara, Galen, everyone, and they bowed to me, and then I bowed to them.
So it was that a few weeks after that Mountain and River session with Shohaku Gomora, I was ordained. 2 years later, he returned to lead another study session. Always such a deep, profound teaching. I was driving him to lunch afterwards when he turned to me and asked, "Did you find out what is a priest?" I was startled and touched that he remembered, and I said, "Shohaku, I ask myself that question every single day."
I found I loved wearing my robes. I felt as though I disappeared and left only my robe as ambassador of the Dharma. It was not a feeling of being special, since there was no I doing it, but a feeling of deeply serving, of making the kind of offering I was made for. I felt like a key perfectly fitting a lock. The key is not special, nor is the lock. It's the function that serves a purpose. There was a sense of everything being meaningful and aligned, a kind of wholeness that left me filled with contentment and joy. Still, the ceremony is one of home leaving, a tradition in which disciples of the Buddha formally leave their ordinary lives behind to enter deeply the path of the Buddhist way.
Leaving home. And so I had embraced the life of a devoted Zen student at AZC, living like a monk while leading my ordinary mind group on Sundays. Flint and I were immersed in study and sharing what we were learning with each other, not only teachings from Zen ancestors and contemporary Zen masters and scholars of Buddhism, but also from psychotherapy and psychology, complex systems, theory, technology, poetry, art, and architecture. We had a great appetite for anything that might deepen or enrich our Zen experience or Zen practice and teaching, from ancient koans to current events. We were gradually assuming more and more leadership and teaching roles at AZC, and we were clearer and clearer about our way of working together as our friendship deepened. My department at UT had generously given me a year of leave in 2004, which would allow me to spend 6 months in residence at AZC, training in forms and priestcraft, learning ceremonies, teaching classes, and studying. The second 6 months I would be spending in monastic training. I rented my house to a visiting faculty member.
I have a question here. You did this before you were priest, right?
No, I started, let's see, I started this year of leave, in the spring at the end of the semester. So that summer, and then I was ordained in August.
And
So I
then you went to Great Vow?
went to Great Vow after, yeah.
Oh, I always imagined it the other way around. Okay. Um, Earlier, I had accompanied the ACC teacher as her attendant for a conference of Zen teachers at Great Vow Zen Monastery in Oregon. There were so many Zen teachers there that we students and attendants had to sleep in tents outside. We had been very impressed with the place, though, and its two abbots, Jan Shoshin Bays and her husband Hogan. Shoshin was a Mizumi Dharma heir like Joko, and so it was decided that I would do my monastic training at Great Vow rather than, as was more typical, at Tassajara, which was the monastery founded by Suzuki Roshi. I was delighted by this decision. It was a lovely way of honoring Joko.
But as the time drew near, I was worried. There were serious challenges emerging in the AZZ Sangha. So many issues with troubled and troubling people, including the teacher. Flint and I had spent countless hours in what I had come to think of as damage control. At one point, I told him, "You are now the unpaid director of a residential treatment facility. Many of the core Sangha members, the bright, accomplished, psychologically healthy folks who have started with Flint, have left. More people with significant psychological and social difficulties had shown up, and the teacher was somehow amplifying the conflicts and distress, even initiating some of them. She was well-intentioned, but the situation was deteriorating."
I didn't want to leave for the monastery in the midst of these challenges, and I worried about abandoning Flint to deal with the situation alone. He insisted that I take this opportunity, that everything would be fine for 6 months, but I was anxious and depressed about it. Something felt all wrong. Suddenly, I realized something about our partnership. I have to go because you can't, I said miserably. Yes, he replied. Out of our shared aspiration, we had forged an unbreakable bond. I left right after the new year in 2005. So we're close to 8 o'clock. Do we want to stop here um, and then start the next chapter next time?
Yes, I think that would be great.
I think that's a good idea. Okay.
And that's Monday, the 6th of January.
Okay.
I wrote it down, page 126.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So that will start the chapter on Great Vow then. I can't believe we're already up to chapter 7. I have to write faster. Thank you so much. It's so great to hear it. Yeah. I really, really appreciate that. So do we want to take a little waiting time? Have a little bit of time for,
Sure.
yeah, maybe until maybe 10 after.
Okay.
Is it possible to see the art in page 125, please? Thank you.
Yeah, the inscription reads, "Intimate, one who knows me," and "Affinity, a tacit understanding." Thanks so much for reading tonight. It's so helpful. I really appreciate it. Anybody want to share anything? Either that they wrote or that they thought?
Do I have to go first? Oh, Ed will go first. Thank you, Ed.
I got your back and your front, Kim. Um, I I have a question. Um, Having experience to some degree and with some differences, obviously, about what you're doing, coming to that whole thing about being a priest and what's coming at you and how you feel you should be doing anything. Was there a time when you were connected with being in grief about not feeling adequate for what you might have been moving into or not knowing enough of what you were moving into?
I don't think it was so much grief. It was such a weird, complex, and confusing mixture of feelings. Like, this is the thing I have to do. This is the thing I want to do. I'm completely unprepared to do it. And still I'm going to have to go ahead. It was more like that. It was less, there was not really grief associated with it, but just more that complex set of feelings like, oh, and now I'm going to have to do this and I'm not good at it. Yeah. And I was more worried about not being prepared to serve in that way. Um, yeah, I felt like I maybe needed maybe a couple more years of reading and education, and then maybe I could consider that. So it was more,
Uncertainty of being uncertain.
yeah, it was more that sense of not not knowing what kinds of demands or expectations will you put on me um, in that role, never having done it before.
But still moving forward to serve that role.
Yeah, it was sort of like being on a conveyor belt or something that was moving you. You weren't, it wasn't really my choice, but I was being moved to it. So it was much more like that, like in a way, like being caught in a riptide or something, or you're paddling away and you're feeling like, I'm not in control of this, like I'm not choosing to swim this way. Yeah. And I wish I was a much stronger swimmer.
Don't we all?
Yeah, but that's a great question, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, you're up, Kim.
Okay. What impressed me most about this chapter was how Peg was able to describe so vividly how much the ceremony meant to her and how touched she was by others. A lot of times people either don't realize that or don't speak about it. And so I've been thinking today in relation to the book, when is one story important to hear and when is it just another story? I think I learn when I hear how one is touched by love, admiration, and generosity. And we never know unless someone tells the story,
Yeah.
obviously. In this case, it seems worth it to tell the story. It also tells how the ceremony goes and how one sows and sows, a test of patience and devotion. And then I say, I think Peg handled well the difficulties that AZC as fairly as could be done, just with description and not with anger. It was what it was, as the saying goes. This was a good Zen teaching. How is one in a difficult situation? Though I suspect it was more emotional at the time.
Yeah, it was again quite perplexing. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so curious to hear from people who don't know Peg about their reaction to the stories.
Mm, yeah.
And was it important to read this story for them?
Yeah. That's a question, isn't
And
it?
people never know. I mean, we've heard so many stories about book publishers turning books down, like 100 book publishers, and then finally one and it becomes a bestseller. How can that possibly be that they missed the boat?
Right. Well, Malen and Donna don't know me personally, so maybe they have a thought about that can answer your question.
Okay.
I met you in person in the last intensive.
But just really briefly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Ed.
Um, I should take more time to find the right word, but I'm just going to go ahead and blurt this out since we have a time thing here. And I've never met you personally. I know some things of you, about you. I know from my interactions with Flint things about you. And the one thing that really has struck me um, in being engaged in this, in reading and speaking these things, it in a very, very significant way humanized you.
Oh,
Um, and I might find a better word than humanize. I knew you weren't AI because we've seen pictures, um, but it put so much more aliveness into you, and seeing you as a more complete human being, as a person, as a woman, as a teacher, as somebody gifted, but somebody at the same time normalized. That's part of the word I was looking for. Um, and that makes the whole thing richer. Um, yeah, I spent quite a while today on the phone with Flint, and that's something that's always so very prominent, is that as amazing as he is and as in depth as he is, there is still that normalcy about him.
mhm.
And that's enriching. And I find this getting to know you more in this way very enriching. And as much as I wouldn't look forward to a plane ride, it'd be nice to meet you in person.
Maybe I'll come there sometime.
We have airports. Come on down.
I've been there, numerous times, but I haven't met you there. Yeah. I think maybe before you got so connected.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. That's very good to hear, actually. Um, yeah, I had my own thoughts about this. What about you, Anne? Did you have anything you wanted to share?
Not really in the writing. I think what I was struck by in this section of the reading was, I think, some of what Ed was alluding to, just the the unworthiness maybe that you felt,
Hmm.
um, the not enoughness
Mhm.
somehow, that really comes through, and that, yeah, this is something you did anyway, that you move forward
Hmm.
with that. And so that really struck me out of this section.
My hope is it would be encouraging for people who are having some of those feelings themselves,
Yeah.
whatever the next step is they're taking on a role, or whether they're, aspiring to be a teacher or something like that. What that it makes it, seem like some of their own uh, perplexity might be normalized that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I really got that feeling that that happened over and over again in
Yeah.
this chapter.
Mhm. Mhm.
What was odd, in my first year of teaching, the department chair said, you're likely to be the best teacher you'll ever be this year. And that was the only year where every student in my class signed up for the next course.
Wow.
So, and I thought he was so crazy because I knew nothing, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
But there was something about that because it's, that all the things you think that would make you good are
Yeah.
not anything compared with just beginner's mind or whatever it is.
Yeah, being present.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still in touch with those people too, which is cool.
That's very
Like 60 years later.
wow.
Hmm.
That's incredible. Well, I can tell you what I thought about it. I said recalling this time at AZC brought a lot of feelings for me. What I hoped was that providing this amount of detail would help readers understand what that kind of immersion in the practice feels like. But of course, it's hard for me to tell whether it's much more than readers are interested in. Like the whole chapter could be one sentence. I began practicing intensely at AZC and in 2000 ordained as a priest there. I mean, that's that's the chapter, right? Um, so so then I thought, but every chapter feels that way to me. Like the whole book could be a pamphlet 4 pages long. That could be a fun exercise. Do that. On the web, it could be an accordion block for each chapter. But I love having the images and quotes on the right-hand page. Now finishing the chapter 12 draft, I can feel the horse heading for the barn. Things are speeding up for the final few chapters. I'm so grateful for all the people who have cheered the project on, who have read, commented, and contributed. It's a true labor of love, but that doesn't necessarily make it good as a book. I need to find out more about that. No doubt that will mean more readers from outside, maybe others than teachers. Most people, though, are not as fierce and specific as professional editors. Another possibility. So thinking about how to shape the project in a way that will really, really helpful to hear what you feel about it and from the reading, because I don't want it to be tedious and boring for people, and that's my concern. But I have to just like right ahead, like it's just like with the ordination. I just have to go ahead, as unworthy as I feel to do it. I have to go ahead with it because it's what's moving. So
Just one question. Did you mean, um, like, I think you were speaking about Okamura's idea of a priest, that it would be a Japanese period, man, period?
yes, that's
Okay.
criteria, none of which I fulfilled.
Okay. Milen wants to say something.
Um,
Yes, I can share. I was thinking about how important it could be, in my opinion, for people to know more about this quote quote the transformation that was going or happening to you in this case, because it's a first voice, the one that is talking in the book.
uh-huh,
And I wrote a little thing. I'll read it.
uh-huh.
Ring the bell faster to break what is beautiful, to break into what is beautiful. It seems the singing waves. It seems the way. Sorry, it seems the singing waves will carry you from the edge of the bell, this liminal unknown place, to the heart of the sound bowl.
Hmm, that's beautiful.
Thank you. It's sort of funny and then dramatic when you ring the bell like quickly and like this. And then,
Bobbing.
yes, just like,
It was so awful. So I was so shocked actually by how bad it was.
but it sounds like in the narrative, like this point where something happens to you as a character, but is very important. And I take it as a metaphor to ring it, fast
Yeah.
in our lives.
Yeah. I was in a real hurry to get through all those 9 bells. Yeah. It was good that there weren't a lot of people in the Zendo, but it was very bad that Flint was the one leading service. Very bad. Because everything that he did was absolutely impeccable. So that made it even worse. Yeah. Well, this is so helpful, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to read through it with me and hearing it. I can hear so much more in it than when I just read it on the page. It's really, really helpful.
And I'm so glad we did this.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad. And I'm just going to like right out ahead of you. Next parts are very descriptive. So they will actually be faster to write, and a lot of that description has been written already. So so that'll be good. Yeah, thank you. It's really, really, I'm so appreciative. I'm really, really appreciative. It's, um, it's a lot of work to read a book, it turns out. Yeah. So still, I think if we can create a really rich experience of in the book of what this practice is and does, I think it will inspire people more, to practice and to want to come to practice in a serious and intentional way. So that's my hope anyway. Yeah. Well, thank you. And we'll meet again in January.
6th, yeah.
Okay. And it'll be 2025. Oh, hard to believe. Yeah. I remember so much when the year 2000 rolled over and all the big hoopla around that. Remember all that, and some people were partying that night, and there were other people who were terrified. They were hunkered down in their homes. Everything was going to stop working, and it was really quite an event. It feels very recent. It's hard to believe.